If you've ever found yourself lying awake at night with your mind racing, replaying conversations, worrying about tomorrow, or analyzing every detail of your day, you're not alone. Overthinking is one of the greatest and biggest barriers to restful sleep. I'm Daniel, and I'm a sleep coach who supported over 100 people heal their sleep. And I spent 10 years in a debilitating sleep journey, spending over $180,000 on every different doctor and healing modality to figure out what works. Now my purpose is to support others on their journey, so I'm glad you're here. Overthinking is the brain's way of trying to gain control and solve problems, or find safety. When it becomes excessive is when it turns into a cycle of stress, anxiety, and disturbed sleep. Today we will explore why overthinking happens, how it disturbs sleep, and most importantly, what you can do about it. So by the end of this, you'll have practical tools to calm your mind, release the need for control, and create some mental stillness needed for deep sleep. So let's dive in. Overthinking is more than just an annoying habit. It's a physiological response. When your brain is overstimulated, it becomes harder to transition into sleep. So why does overthinking keep you awake? We go into overthinking as a coping mechanism to try and stay safe. The need for overthinking comes from some place in the body or mind thinking that there is something wrong, right? So the mind is then stuck in this problem-solving mode, keeping your brain alert instead of allowing it to wind down. The overthinking then triggers the fight or flight response, right? Activating the nervous system and keeping the stress hormones like cortisol elevated. High cortisol levels interfere with melatonin production, and the hormone that signals sleep. This anxiety and overthinking then keeps the mind stuck in a loop, making relaxation feel impossible. The root of all this? Lack of safety. Overthinking is not just a mental habit. It's a survival mechanism rooted in a fundamental need for safety. Our mind races because some part of us does not feel safe, secure, or resolved. This lack of safety can be emotional, psychological, or even physical. So let's dive deeper into why this happens and how it influences sleep. Why safety matters for sleep. It's a biological instinct. From an evolutionary perspective, sleep is the most vulnerable state we can be in. Our ancestors needed to feel completely safe to rest deeply without the fear of predators or danger. This biological programming remains with us today. If the mind perceives any form of a threat, even if it's an imagined one, it resists sleep. So this can look like emotional safety, which is maybe the most common one. And emotional stress like unworthy, lonely, insecure triggers the same fight or flight responses as physical danger. And as mentioned, this keeps the nervous system activated, making it impossible to relax to sleep. Then we have mental safety. Unresolved thoughts or fears create mental loops as the brain tries to protect itself from perceived threats. This is why we replay conversations, imagine worst case scenarios, or get stuck in what if spirals. So in what ways do lack of safety fuel the overthinking? The mind might seek closure, right? When thoughts are unresolved, the mind stays active, searching for a solution or a sense of completion. This is why you might replay the day's events or worry about tomorrow's challenges. Then we might see it in forms of trying to predict or control. If something feels uncertain or unpredictable, the mind races to try to control the outcome. This is a safety mechanism. By planning for every possible scenario, the mind feels more prepared and less vulnerable. Fear of the unknown, right? The mind's job is to protect you from danger. When it encounters uncertainty, it tries to solve it by overthinking, creating a false sense of control and safety. So again, overthinking is a symptom of feeling unsafe or uncertain, whether that's emotional, mental, or physical safety. Healing overthinking starts with creating safety within your body. So before we can change overthinking, you have to become aware of it, right? Awareness is the first and probably the most powerful tool for shifting the mind. Common overthinking patterns: worrying about the future, as we talked about, playing out what-if scenarios and trying to control the uncontrollable. Replaying the past, overanalyzing conversations or actions, wondering what you could have done differently. Jack Kornfield, a leader in the meditation space, would always talk about how often we spend so much of our time thinking about the future or replaying the past. But how often has it actually supported us? I want you to really think about that. And what would it be like to work towards living from this moment, here and now? Part of the work is buying into and understanding and deciding that spending all this time in the future and the past in our minds is not actually serving us. So some other patterns will look like self-judgment, criticizing yourself for things you did or didn't do, creating unnecessary stress. And then lastly, the fix-it loop, feeling like you need to solve everything right now before you can relax. Now, it's important to be distinguishing between helpful reflection versus destructive overthinking. Helpful reflection is a mindful and purposeful process. It's when you look back and think ahead with the intention of learning, growing, or finding solutions. This type of thinking is constructive and focused. It helps you gain clarity, make decisions, and prepare for future challenges without spiraling into anxiety. So what will this look like? Purpose-driven. You're reflecting with a clear purpose, such as learning from an experience, solving a problem, or planning your next steps. It leads to resolution and action. It'll be time limited, so helpful reflection has a start and end point. You dedicate a specific amount of time to think things through and then let go. It doesn't linger. Balanced perspective. You're able to see both positive and negatives without getting stuck in what went wrong. Emotionally neutral. There's no self-judgment or harsh criticism. It's about learning and understanding and not blaming yourself. So some examples or helpful reflections. Reviewing a conversation to understand how you could communicate more clearly next time. Strategizing for an upcoming project by considering potential challenges and solutions. Or reflecting on the day's wins and lessons and then letting go of the day with gratitude. Then the deconstructive overthinking, which on the other hand is repetitive, circular, anxiety-driven. It's when your mind becomes stuck in a loop, replaying these scenarios or worrying about the future without finding solutions. This leads to stress, emotional exhaustion, prevents restful sleep. It'll look problem-oriented. Instead of looking for solutions, destructive overthinking fixates on the problems, creating a sense of helplessness and overwhelm. Endless looping, right? There's no closure or resolution. Thoughts keep circling back without reaching a conclusion. You likely see a negativity bias, right? The mind gets trapped in worst-case scenario, magnifying fears and anxieties. And then my personal favorite, self-critical. It involves harsh self-judgment, leading to feelings of inadequacy, shame, or regret. So some examples of this is replaying awkward conversations over and over, criticizing yourself for what you said or did. Maybe imagining every possible negative outcome of an upcoming event, increasing anxiety and fear. And ruminating on mistakes from the past without finding lessons or solutions, leading to regret and guilt. Awareness alone can break this cycle. When you notice an overthinking pattern, you create space to shift out of it. So one of the biggest factors in overthinking comes from unresolved thoughts and emotions. The connection between overthinking and unresolved issues are that the brain is trying to finish something, whether it's an unresolved conversation, an unprocessed emotion, or an incomplete decision. Some part of you does not feel safe, so your mind keeps looping to try to solve it. So how we work with this is, number one, is honoring it. Instead of pushing these thoughts, emotions, whatever away, you acknowledge what's coming up. You spend time with it. 2, look at exploring the root. Ask yourself, what is this thought trying to tell me? What am I afraid of? 3 is seeking resolutions. Sometimes resolution comes from feeling an emotion, not just understanding it. This is more of a emotional body exercise rather than mental. And then 4, write it out. Journaling, brain dumping can help externalize the thoughts so they don't feel as overwhelming. So by addressing what's unresolved, your mind no longer has to hold onto it as tightly. Overthinking is often a way to feel in control. If we think enough, plan enough, analyze enough, we believe we can prevent bad outcomes. But in reality, control is often an illusion. So why we control is we fear uncertainty and the unknown and inevitability. We believe that by planning ahead, we can avoid discomfort and inevitability of life. And we mistake control for safety. So how do we practice this trust and surrender? It's by accepting that not everything needs to be resolved right now. Reminding yourself that you can handle whatever comes, even if it's unexpected. And letting go of the belief that thinking more is equal to better outcomes. This takes time. Spend time with these new encouraging thoughts. rather than these old patterns. It's what we water will grow. True peace comes from embracing this uncertainty, not trying to eliminate it. Instead of fighting your thoughts, learn to observe them without attachment. Because thoughts are not facts. Just because you have a thought doesn't mean it's true. Your mind generates them automatically. Some are helpful and some are just noise, some are just processing. Mindfulness techniques. All right, so the elements that make up a really mindful practice will be noticing versus engaging. Instead of getting caught up in thoughts, simply observe them like passing clouds. Create distance, labeling the thoughts as thinking instead of treating them as reality. Ah, there you are thinking. Breath awareness. Use breath as an anchor to stay present instead of lost in thoughts. These are sort of the elements I use in my meditation to foster presence and foster awareness. So let's recap. Overthinking keeps the nervous system in a state of stress, disrupting sleep. Awareness of thought patterns is the first step in shifting them. Unresolved emotions often fuel the overthinking. Addressing them helps bring closure. Letting go of control and trusting yourself creates peace. Simple practices like journaling, mindfulness, breath work help to quiet the mind before bed. So like anything, we have to heal this from the root. Continue to do the work to understand where your lack of safety comes from. Then we look to create safety by doing the inner healing work needed. So like anything, we have to heal this from the root. Continue to do the work to understand where the lack of safety comes from. We look to recreate the safety by doing the inner healing work needed. I've included strategies for working with a busy, overthinking mind in the text below. Choose one strategy from this module to implement this week. Observe your thought patterns and try shifting the response to them. And remember, your mind and body already know how to rest. Your job is to create the right conditions and remind it that it's safe. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.